Hey, Sophia. Huge thanks for giving us this opportunity to discuss your life experiences and personal thoughts. Let's get started.
Thank you. I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to speak about Falun Dafa. It's been an amazing life since I discovered Falun Dafa, and it's quite a journey to get there for me. So I'm excited that I can share my journey with you today. I was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico. That's an island in the Caribbean for those of you that aren't familiar with the Caribbean geography. It's a beautiful island in the Caribbean, beautiful warm waters, and I grew up sailing and snorkeling and sunshine and coconut milk very much. In terms of my parents, they are both very well educated and speak multiple languages. My father has an Ivy League degree, is an American expatriate that moved to Puerto Rico in his very early 20s after serving in the Air Force. And he developed a very successful real estate brokerage and property management business. And I got to be a part of that growth because we were manning the phones and cleaning the toilets in the office growing up. So we were part of that success, and we saw how it worked and how it happened. So it's a very tight-knit family. On my mother's side, she is originally Austrian, and her family fled post-World War II Nazi Europe. She spent her formative years, basically age 6 through high school, in Argentina, and then went to Munich to study at a very well-known and prestigious architectural school. She's someone that grew up with very little. They lost everything in the war. So she came from wealth and a good family and good background. And then with having moved to Argentina, they sold everything they had. So she was raised with a lot of awareness of what it's like to be very poor and how to overcome that with education. And after graduating from the architectural school in Europe, she then did her master's degree in Cornell and left Cornell to work in San Juan, Puerto Rico as an executive for Hilton. And this is at a time where women were not typically executives. She's quite a fantastic force in our family environment. So Puerto Rico is obviously where my parents met, and they had common values of being very creative people and exploring the world with an open heart and a curious mind and a love of God, and also really having an appreciation for nature and humanity, really. Growing up, we also spent a lot of time with my mother's parents, so my grandparents, and they had retired in southern France. With my parents having their businesses to run during the summers, my sisters and I would be carted off to my grandparents in southern France. And so we got to learn French and also German because there was a large German community in that area. And that influenced me a lot growing up. I was educated from pre-kinder through high school in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It was always expected that I would go to college in the United States, in the mainland. And so I spent 1 year in boarding school on the East Coast. I went to the university in the Midwest. It was one of the top 3 ranking universities in the Midwest. I studied ecology with a strong organic chemistry and mathematics background. I was attracted to ecology because I observed the development of Puerto Rico, the island where I grew up. And I saw so much ecological destruction and just such a disregard for the environment that I felt I could make a difference. Coming from the tropics, I would then learn the temperate, ecological balance of things, and I thought I could really help. I found that counting crickets and fish was not my thing. So after feeling quite dissatisfied with my professional career after undergrad, I was very happy to do an executive master's degree in environmental engineering. And I've been in that field as a sales engineer for about 10 years and very happy with where I am. I was about to move to Singapore, beautiful place that's kind of a combination between Puerto Rico and the Caribbean and Switzerland. That's Singapore. You mix Puerto Rico and Switzerland together, you get Singapore. And I was about to move to Singapore when my husband in the US, in Michigan, proposed. And that's when I returned to the United States. And that was 2013.
Before you jumped into Falun Gong, did you follow any other religious beliefs?
Both my parents are very spiritual people with a direct relationship with God. That was always a big deal in our home. And the best way to describe my religious upbringing is that my family had a nuanced relationship with Christianity. I would say all the good things that Christianity espouses, they definitely adopted as well and passed on to my sisters and me. My father would go to a Unitarian church, but I think it's more because he loved people and enjoyed the principled social community aspects. He also liked to hear the higher messages from the Bible and the stories with deeper meaning. He would talk about that when he came home as well from church. My mother, on the other hand, she did not go to church. She believed that a lot of people that were hypocrites would go to church and then they would come home and they would beat their gardeners, things like that. That's what she would observe, and she'd point out at our neighbor who did just that. So we understood that hypocrisy was probably not the way to go, and that the good things of Christianity, of love thy neighbor, being forgiving, not judging others, that was important. I would say that my mother really had a big impact on our lives because she taught us about prayer. She was deeply moral and spiritual, but she had this connection to nature and God and angels and divine beings, even gnomes. I mean, she would have us sit in front of a tree and say, if we were really quiet and if you had good kindness in your heart, that the gnomes and the nature fairies might show themselves to you, but you had to be really good in your heart. I think that's really sweet. So we grew up kind of with that, where God, angels, and the divine beings that look out for us are all around, and we can ask them for guidance and for help. So this kind of an environment led to me having a very deep relationship with God, with divinity in general, and with nature. So at the age of 14, I had an interesting event where I found myself in this really warm, perfect, transcendental space that has no light. It was completely empty and completely quiet and completely peaceful and completely full of nothingness. I have no other way to explain it. And as I'm resting in this place and I am fully repaired from the battered life on earth, these three beings, actually these three lights come through the beautiful, full, delicious darkness that I'm resting in, and they come and collect me. And it starts sort of as three fingers, kind of like light in a dark night of an ocean. And they pull me up and I end up in heaven, or what, would be called in heaven. But when you experience it, you think, oh, this is much more than just heaven. Anyway, so I spent about 3 days there, and being there felt much more alive and vibrant than anything on earth or in my human body. I was not in a human body at this point. At the end of 3 days, they tell me, well, now it's time for you to go back to your body to continue what you're supposed to do on earth. And I said, you can try to convince me all you want, but there's no way I'm going back to earth in that human body. And they said, well, we'll show you why you would want to go back, because we can't force you. But understand that if you're back and you're there, that it was because you agreed. We cannot force you. And so I thought, give it your best shot. There's no way I'm going back. Lo and behold, I'm coming back into the body. It's like going down an elevator shaft with graph paper and through a vortex, being squeezed in. And I find myself back in the body. That other heavenly space felt so much more vibrant than anything else I'd ever experienced on this earth. Bringing me back into the body, they're exclaiming to me really loud, booming. It's not loud like sound or words. It's loud, like the way music goes into your rib cage and you hear it. And the message was follow God, follow God. It was so emphatic, and it was on repeat like a loop. And I said, okay, okay. And I realized, okay, they're not hearing me because they're just pushing so hard, follow God, that I just obviously have to follow God and listen to that. So I found myself back in the earthly body, saddled with the discomfort inherent in being human. And the disappointment was just, it was beyond belief. And I had depression for several years thereafter, just because I yearned being back in that beautiful heavenly realm where I was inside of, like, being in the breath of God in that heavenly realm. So that left a deep impression on me about what I was here to do on earth as a human in a body.
How did you first come into contact with Falun Gong?
That's a good question. My first exposure to Falun Gong was while I was in college. I mean, it was really barely a memory. On a rare occasion, I saw Chinese people practicing the exercises, but I knew nothing about it. I think it looked cool and like something I would do, but I didn't actually try it. My second exposure to Falun Gong was after I graduated from college, and I lived in Atlanta at the time, and there were people doing the exercises in one of the parks downtown, and I just jumped in to do the exercises. It was really random. I just jumped in. It was less than 5 minutes, and I could not grasp it. I didn't pursue it at the time, and I was a member of another New Age meditation group, and the teacher at the time erroneously claimed that that was an inferior practice and that her practice was more advanced. So I didn't pursue it. Then about 5 years ago, I started practicing Falun Dafa, and that was after I battled a lifetime of poor health. I got sick with Lyme disease in 2015, and my body started slowly shutting down, and I was desperate for some help. What held me together for so long was really my connection to the Holy Spirit. And I remember sitting in my office at home, having a discussion with God. And it was after major surgery, and a part of me was resigned to the possibility that my life might soon end. So I asked God. I've tried everything, conventional, alternative, medication, meditation, but nothing's worked. God, is there anything that I've missed or that I'm supposed to do before I die? And after this question, I had a luminous spark at the back of my mind just light up. And I remembered the brief exposure to those Chinese exercises in the park in Atlanta. And this is the oddest thing, because I was barely 5 minutes doing the exercises and it looked like too much work. But I remembered it in that moment when I was just having this discussion with God. And I was certain about what I was looking for. I knew I could find it online. I knew if I searched for it that I would find it. The memory was so precise. The feeling of Falun Dafa was so precise. I didn't even know what it was called, but I knew exactly what I was looking for. And in under 3 minutes, I found videos on Falun Dafa, exactly, on YouTube. And I listened to all of them. And even the negative videos of Falun Dafa reinforced my interest and encouraged me even more. There was no way that I could be dissuaded. I knew this was it. I needed to check it out. And it was like complete clarity, like a crystal, So I did. And that's how I connected to the group, the local group here. And I started doing the exercises.
How has Falun Dafa influenced your life? How does it differ from your previous religious beliefs?
So after casually practicing only the Falun Dafa exercises, the Lyme disease symptoms and diagnosis disappeared over about a 3-month period. I'd always been very underweight. I was thin. I kind of looked like a stick with no shape. And my body began to fill out in a more normal way. I had more of a normal weight for the first time in my entire life. I actually started to look gently feminine. So as I continued to do the exercises, the debilitating depression that I'd had since I was a child began to lift. What was the most striking for me was the mental clarity that I possessed after doing the exercises. I had struggled with brain fog since I was about 14 years old. I was hospitalized with asphyxiation during an advanced case of acute mononucleosis. And the drugs that the hospital gave me to save my life were so strong for a 14-year-old whose body is developing, a teenager, that my body never fully recovered. So they saved my life, but it ruined my endocrine system. So I had health issues ever since. And it was really a lifelong battle with depression and brain fog combined. So within the first year of doing the exercises in Falun Dafa, both the brain fog and the depression were completely gone for the first time in my life. And you have to understand that this was something that I had worked with: medication, lifestyle, health. I'd done the GAPS diet, the gluten-free diet, vegetarian, vegan, even carnivore. I mean, I had tried everything. So it was mind-blowing that an exercise could just bring everything into a balance that I had not experienced since I was 14 years old. It's amazing. So after about a year of doing only the exercises, I decided that I should practice more diligently. I should find out more about what Falun Dafa is. And I had a stunning experience that occurred when I deliberately and intentionally decided I want to really study Falun Dafa intentionally in a deep way. And I wanted to commit myself. I had been connected to divine beings or angels, however you want to call it, ever since I was a child. And wherever I go, we are together. So we think together, we talk together. All my decision making is together. And as I closed my eyes and made the deliberate intention of, okay, I want to practice Falun Dafa, from inside of me, usually it's a thought form or it sounds like your own thinking, but this was a voice. And it said clearly in my head, we've been waiting for a long time. And I felt very moved and I sobbed my heart out upon realizing this is it. I mean, this is it. This is what, when I was coming back into the body and they were saying, follow God, this is what they meant. And my husband saw me sobbing, thinking that something was very wrong. And I explained to him, no. And I explained what had happened. And he was also very moved. So it's wonderful. It's an amazing realization when you realize everything you've been trying to do, it's right here. And you can do it. It's right here. How was it different compared to how I was raised in my own spiritual beliefs before I encountered Falun Dafa? That's a really good question. Oh yes. So there were some things that took me a while to integrate when I began to practice Falun Dafa. So I was raised with prayer and an open dialogue with God because I was taught that God is with me and everyone at all times. The part that I struggled with most as I began to practice Falun Dafa was how prayer is not something casual. In Christianity, you ask for God to help you and also for guidance all the time, to be safe on a trip, to do well on an exam, help you remember to do things on a list, whatever you want to do well. You do it asking God for help. In Falun Dafa, you send forth righteous thoughts. What is that? It's really powerful. Sending forth righteous thoughts is a 15-minute meditation that works like a scientific formula. And the outcome is ridding the body of unwelcomed or negative energies or evil, basically. And it cleans out one's mind and surroundings of any junk so that you can eradicate junk, evil, in your immediate environment and beyond. This 15-minute practice is so powerful, and it was the first time I was able to overcome previously oppressive influences from the other levels that I had battled with since I was a child. And these are things that I could not talk about because I was well aware that few, if any, could really perceive these things, and I did not want to draw attention to myself. So continuing along the lines of when I started to practice Falun Dafa, what parts were difficult to integrate? Where did I have to work at it? You know, compared to my previous beliefs and spiritual philosophy in life and Falun Dafa. So the difference with Christianity and studying Falun Dafa is that with Christianity, there's sort of this prayer and focus on obtaining what you desire as a preferred human outcome. Whereas in Falun Dafa, you have a part in helping God's will being expressed. So it's an entirely different perspective, and it took me a while to get used to this mode. What really stands out for me with Falun Dafa, especially when I relate it to my previous spiritual philosophy or how I was raised, and Christianity, which I can compare it to because that's how I was kind of raised in that culture, is that I like how with Falun Dafa, there's this thing about going along with heavenly or divine flow or timing. Almost like you as a human have to get out of the way, so to speak, to allow for the higher way to lead and guide you. It's a strange phenomenon and understanding relative to the Western world or society where we live in, where we're constantly striving and believing in the need to change the world outside of you. Falun Dafa is different. It teaches that we need to change ourselves inside, and that when we work on ourselves inside, the world around us changes. The people around us change. So you're squarely responsible for your actions, experiences, and thoughts. But this is also tricky because the way one practices is really up to you, yourself, the individual. There's a community of Falun Dafa folks in every city. I can join a study group wherever I go. And you get to know each other pretty well. And yet no one tells you, oh, according to such and such, you should be doing more of this, or have you done more of that? You should be meditating more. You should be doing the exercises more. There's no such thing. I've never come across that at all. I think that's because the practice is based on the Mandarin word Zhen. It's a phrase, Zhen Shanren, which are 3 words. Truthfulness, integrity is 1 word, compassion, and forbearance. And when you practice in the group, the individual is responsible for enlightening to things based on Zhen Shanren, truthfulness, integrity, compassion, forbearance. So there's no love bombing or flattery that is commonly experienced or associated with a lot of the New Age spiritual groups. And the more modern Christian churches that love bomb, there's none of that in Falun Dafa. It's very clean and a very uplifting environment that makes it easy to continually improve oneself in everything that one does. So the practice of Falun Dafa and how it's impacted my life, it's changed everything. my health, my demeanor, and how I carry myself. I used to be excessively self-centered because my health was so poor that when things were not going well, I believed that if I needed something to function, that I was entitled to it, that I should have it. And if that's what I needed to get through the day, then I should absolutely have it. And it was all about me getting it. And now, whenever there's any kind of discord, I look within, I look inside myself, and I try to see, what am I doing? What am I missing? What I need to do differently? How can I change or step up my conduct to be more congruent to truthfulness, integrity, compassion, forbearance, Jen Shanren, because I'm responsible for my surroundings. And my internal changes have a direct effect on the world outside of me. The most wonderful thing about Falun Dafa, because there's so many wonderful things about Falun Dafa, is that it's all about how to break the cycle of reincarnation. Yay! Since I've been a kid, I have had past life experiences and memories. And as a result, the concept of being well off or not well off, educated, not well educated, humanly having a good life, bad life, another life, you die, you pop right back here. So for another ride, another go, over and over again, good life, bad life, another life, who cares? And I remember I would go to the movies with friends and they enjoy the movie. And so they got up and went about their lives. And I thought, what's the point of going to a movie if it's only a temporary break from the agony of life and it doesn't change anything? Why bother going to the movie? So Falun Dafa is a direct information and process of study that addresses this and provides like a technical instruction manual akin to a ladder to heaven. And it comes with a community of like-minded individuals that are working on themselves without fanfare. And that's amazing to me. So when you have that and you're engaging that, there's a certain amount of stress that just falls away from life, where you know that you're doing your absolute best. You know that you're practicing spiritual cultivation and that you're looking within and you're really dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's. And after that, you can let go. You can let God. And it takes an enormous burden off of perfectionists like me. So it's been a wonderful practice in that regard. Falun Dafa brought hope back into my life. Before, I really lacked hope. I mean, obviously, I was also on my way out, probably dying. But I also felt that the world was descending into a pit of polluted chaos of all kinds. And it very much continues to look like this. And the polarization gets so intense that no one can be on the fence anymore. So I choose to elevate myself spiritually. Falun Dafa provides me with a concrete framework that is direct and pure and kind, and in a way so that it's simple. And I feel like I'm very lucky to be able to have found it. I'm really lucky that I can talk to others about it. So thank you for this opportunity.
A big thank you to Sophia as well. Appreciate you dedicating your valuable time. Thanks a lot for sharing.